thought it'd be nice if I sat in the snake pit for once, which is not something I've tended to do before. So as a Barclay boy, if you like, obviously Barclay's just over there. But Carrow Road has seen a cracking game of football, it has to be said. 2-2 here against Arsenal, a game where ultimately Norwich should have probably won it on balance of chances. They had some cracking ones in the second half. Leno made a couple of fantastic saves, and I have to say you could probably put it down to more his goalkeeping heroics than Norwich really botching them. So I think Arsenal deserve or certainly the Arsenal's goalkeeper deserves a lot of credit for that. But really nice to see Norwich on 2 games on the trot now, putting together coherent performances defensively and in terms of attacking wise. I think it was I have to say the way Norwich organised their press today was really good to see, because they did look organised. You could see what they were trying to do and they were instructing each other, and they seemed much more communicative on the pitch, which probably comes from the heart of getting that result and victory at Everton. But they seemed to have the bit between the teeth about what they were needing to do, and I guess the fact they were always kind of up in the game helped with that as well. They did give away a few chances defensively, but what I would say is actually they look reasonably secure. I mean, you've got to deal with what Norwich are. You know, they are going to concede chances to his side, even like Arsenal, who are struggling, and they have their own shortfalls that I'll probably touch on in a bit. But you know, Norwich generally were compact and generally defended the areas they needed to really well. Ultimately, they were probably really unfortunate with the first goal in terms of the VAR and the penalty retake, but unfortunately it's not the same as hard done by. I think it was probably the right call in most opportunities, and you know, it's annoying, but there's not really much probably you can do about it, especially when you're playing a big team. The equaliser in the second half, I would say fair play to Aubameyang, because he's done really well to peel into quite a bit of space at the back post. And although it was a great block in the build-up, you know, the ball falling to him is why Aubameyang is there in the first place, and Norwich marking zonally are not going to necessarily peel away to chase him, and by the time they were trying to close him down it was too late. But it was also a world-class finish in terms of him picking his spot and hitting it in a fraction of a second. So you know, that's frustrating, of course, but brilliant to see Teemu Pukki score his first goal since Manchester City. It's been a long time coming, had a great chance later on as well. Out of the 2, that was probably the one that Leno did okay with. I thought Leno's save from Kenny McLean when he was clean through was brilliant, although Kenny himself was disappointed he didn't score. And the first goal was a wonderful move and a very tidy goal by Todd Cantwell. Lots of encouragement, and kind of emphasising that Norwich's balance and form at the moment is very good in terms of the players on the pitch. They all deserve good credit for that. Norwich really dug in when they needed to, but ultimately they were on the front foot for most of it, and you know, they were pretty disappointed in general, to be honest. Most of the players we spoke to after that, you know, even Daniel himself, I mean, very proud of the performance they put in, but just disappointed that it didn't earn 3 points, which in fairness it probably should have done on the balance of chances especially. But it is the performance that I think is the biggest plus point here, because Norwich in 2 games over 90 minutes have been excellent. They've looked cohesive, they've used the ball pretty well, and they've just had a bit of their mojo back, and I think that's what bodes really well. And that was the thing after the Man City game that just went completely missing, and that was what really made me fear for where they were going. So the fact they've got that back is really good, because they've got 2 huge games coming up, of course, here against Sheffield United next weekend, and in between a visit to Southampton in midweek, a rare Premier League midweek game. So it's going to be pretty tough times. But if Norwich keep playing like this, then there's certainly reason to go into both games with a good degree of hope and seeing what they can do with that. A couple of points to maybe pick up on. Ibrahim Amadou made a fantastic block in the last seconds to preserve Norwich's point. It was a goal-saving block. It was brilliant as Arsenal countered, and I think seeing Ibrahim, it was really good to see him in that defensive midfield role for the first time in the Premier League, because you could see all of his strengths. Also, there was a bit where he just sort of lost focus in the second half, and there was one pretty horrendous errant pass in that, but lots of positives in terms of how aggressive he was in his own pressing, the energy, the amount of ground he covered, and generally his use of the ball was good. He read the game pretty well, and I like him there. I like it, and I like the balance Norwich have got with him and Tom Tybalt next to him. So that's a real benefit. I like that a lot. Sam Byram, outstanding, kept Jamal Lewis out of the side, and I'm glad Daniel did that because that keeps faith with Sam, and he is doing nothing wrong. He was very good today again, and positionally I liked him a lot, and he looks he's going to stay there until he loses form or something untoward happens, which touch wood it doesn't, because he needs a good run of games here, and I think it'd be great if he now got it. Todd played very well. Kenny was my man of the match. I think he's a revelation in this number 10 role at the moment. The form he's putting in, the way he's going about things is fantastic. All I'll say about Emi Buendia, who hasn't played in the last couple of games, you can still see, even for those final 5 minutes or whichever it was when he came on, he does give Norwich a different dynamic going forwards, and it's great to see, but there is still just that shortage of pressing and defensive work and covering runners and getting close enough with players crossing the ball. I just want him to step that up, and I think he will need to step that up if he is going to break back into the team, and I think he probably just needs to bear that in mind if he's feeling a bit annoyed about the fact that he's not starting at the moment. So it'll be interesting how Emi deals with this challenge. He's a young lad, a hugely talented footballer, and he's got a bit of a challenge on. Fascinating watching Arsenal today, because they've got so many good players. Clearly they lost Unai Emery. They didn't lose him, they sacked him in the week, and this was a big day for Freddie Ljungberg. They have so much talent, and they've got so many very good players. Certainly Pierre Aubameyang did really well today, given he was sort of a bit here, there and everywhere. But it's fascinating how they haven't got anyone who just grabs a game. They look very passive in the second half, apart from when Ljungberg made some changes, and then they sort of rediscovered their mojo until Farke made his changes with Buendia, and Norwich got back on the front foot at least. And defensively they're a bit all over the place as well. I think that was certainly an issue with the first goal where Mustafi just completely backed off Pukki, and with the deflected shot went in. So I don't think everything's going to suddenly be rectified because Unai Emery is no longer in charge. It'll be interesting what happens. And of course there are managers going left, right and centre in the Premier League at the moment, and it's good that Daniel Farke is pretty secure in his job regardless of how Norwich go forward for the time being especially. So how that all unravels over the preceding weeks, we will see. But I'm not really going to talk about VAR. Basically, I'm going to have to stand up because my legs are going. What I would say on VAR is that it's incredibly harsh, the encroachment on Max Aarons. The fact he then touches the ball first after Tim Krul's save is what effectively gives the encroachment. So it's probably it is the right decision by the letter of the law. But I mean, it's only his knee and him leaning into the box that means he is encroaching. The fact that then anyone else encroaches, if they don't touch the ball, has kind of been why it hasn't been pulled up. So can't really argue with that. And I mean, David Luiz has his arm on Christoph Zimmermann. From that replay, you cannot tell what force he's putting on. Obviously, Christoph is turning his back and his arms in the air, probably in an unnatural position. But I have to say, you can't really judge what the forces are on anyone in that instance. So the fact that the referee has given the penalty probably means you can't change it. That's the way I look at it. Had he have not given the penalty, would VAR have then changed it? I don't know. Probably not, I assume. But what I would say is the officials got so many 50-50 decisions wrong. Wasn't the best of performance. But likewise, I'd probably argue Kenny McLean was actually quite lucky to stay on the pitch, because he did absolutely clatter Guendouzi, and it was not a pretty tackle, and he got a booking for it. I don't know if VAR checked it, but there we go. Swings and roundabouts, you just got to make sure you remember all the incidents, and then you can have a fair balance of them all. Anyway, we're off to Southampton in midweek. Of course, I will be there. It's worth mentioning to you all on here, On The Ball podcast. It's a new podcast from The Athletic, but it's free to listen on all of your usual podcast players. It's free. You don't have to be a subscriber to listen to it. You might have to be a subscriber to listen to some of the stuff we talk about, because we'll be talking about some of my stories on The Athletic. But On The Ball is free to listen to with an array of guests and the regulars that I'll have on as well. So just search On The Ball podcast of Norwich City on your podcast player, and it should turn up. In the meantime, it did finish here 2-2. I hope I said that at the start. Norwich now got 4 points from their last 2 games. 2 very encouraging performances. It's now absolutely critical and crucial for all our hopes and prayers and dreams that they carry that on for 2 huge games coming up. But I tell you what, if they do carry that on, they've got a good chance of getting a fair few more points on the board. See you later.